writing songs is like collecting or harvesting the residue of a life. It's almost what happens when you later take your experiences and reflecting on them, arrange them in some order.
A lot of the blues players came from very poor, dirt poor backgrounds, and they had this gift of singing about the human element, which was a lot of it was despair, and making people laugh at it.
A lot of stuff came out of anger, being in a rock and roll band. It's how do you do it? You don't punch your wife or get drunk or throw your Rolex. Write a song about it. I'll fix your ass.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel?
At the time that we were doing Rumors, there was this rather unusual situation within the workings of the band where you had two couples that were in the process of breaking up during the making of the album. So you had all this cross dialogue going on.
You can go your own way, go your own way.
You had John McVie and Christine McVie breaking up. You had Stevie and myself breaking up. Go Your Own Way was a song basically directed at Stevie.
Go Your Own Way was Lindsay talking to Stevie or not talking to Stevie. It was basically On Your Bike Girl. Whenever that song was at its peak, that was Stevie and Lindsay playing out whatever roles they were playing out. I mean, some heavy stuff went on with that song.
You can go your own way, go your own way. You can call it another day.
The Rumors album went way through the ceiling, you know, and at some point became a phenomenon in which the sales and the success of it really became disproportionate to what the music itself was. I always perceived it as having something to do with the fact that it was kind of a musical soap opera, and I think all of that came through. I think the emotion of that, the truthfulness of that came through on the grooves.
The Rumors album turned into a freak, really. We weren't going to complain about it because we really all the interviews would go, well, how much money you made? That's what, 15 million albums now. But we got through it, and then we went into a situation where the likes of Peter Frampton, the Bee Gees, a lot of these bands were selling a lot of albums, big numbers that hadn't been done before.
Woke up this morning with a wine glass in my hand. Who's fine? What fine? Where the hell did I go? Must have been a dream. I don't believe where I've been. Come on, let's do it again. How do you feel?
Frampton Comes Alive was released in January 1976, and it became this ginormous record-breaking record, and became the biggest selling record of all time.
The 55,000 that showed up today at Anaheim were there because of only one person, the 26-year-old Englishman whose name is magic enough to have all these rock fans standing out in the hot sun from 1 in the afternoon to 8 o'clock tonight.
There were quite a few boom years there. There were a lot of people who were realizing that you could make a ton of money off of concerts on a large scale. We were certainly in the middle of that until the bottom dropped out of that, which was not a bad thing.
The way I think that Frampton Comes Alive changed the industry was that it made everybody realize that there were a lot of people out there, more people than usual, that could buy a record. There's a bigger audience out there than they thought, which turned it into a much bigger business almost overnight.
Frampton Comes Alive was the first sort of generally recognized multi-platinum album. And when people realized you could make that much money selling records, they became disinterested in fringe artists. You know, people within the industry became disinterested in fringe artists, started investing everything in these sort of mega platinum artists. And that amount of money also attracted, corporations that had no essential interest in music. They had only interest in money-producing enterprises of any kind. Gulf and Western started buying up record companies, and therefore record companies started being run from accounting offices rather than from A&R offices.
It was a new game, a new, as you would say, new ball game.
There was the corporate thing in the 70s where people were making, big stadium shows, and the music didn't seem to be quite as good as it should have, or it didn't seem to be being made for quite the right reasons. And you were having certain things that weren't that good just thrust down your throat.
Time to get some records on the radio. We have a shot this week.
The album is a smash. There's such a buzz going on.
Out of sight.
It is a monster.
That was the beginning of that.
I mean, there is this adage in the business that if something works, run it into the ground.
Here are 10 Frampton albums for the jocks.
There are very, very few moves in popular music now which haven't already been plotted out and considered by some major corporation who will put the money behind them. There are not many accidents.
I mean, they got to the point where they was putting things on you to measure your heartbeat to see what songs would work. When you try to do music like that, when you try to put it on an assembly line as a commodity, it changed every time.
Up until that live album came out, I'd always just sat down, wherever I was, wherever I'd gone to write, and written for myself. I knew I had to write an album, but I was basically writing stuff for my own enjoyment. Then Frampton Comes Alive comes along, and I go, oh my God, what do they want now? And all of a sudden, the way I was thinking about writing changed. There was a pressure to write for other people instead of myself.
I mean, the only way artists can do things is to do it for themselves. And trying to second guess what the public wants or likes is kind of a fool's game.
Hey, thank you.
When it got to the 70s, ourselves, the Earth, Wind and Fire, some of the other Sly and Family Stone, who was influenced on all of us, had music where you can dance and it was still rock and roll. It was dance. And so we went on and on into that. And as the funk bands started coming out, they really started dancing. And that became money for the companies. The companies tried to isolate the part of the record that worked, that made it dance. So your first notion is that it's a drum beat. But the mistake is that it's no one drum beat. When they start isolating to one drum beat and one sound, don't nothing get on your nerve more than some rhythmic that's the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's like making love with one stroke.